Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be unboxing something completely different than usual. Inside this box is a Chinese QJ2102 steam locomotive from K First. This is a type of engine which I've had a lot of interest in lately after reading up on the history of RJ Corman. It's basically a railroad which was started by a guy named Rick Corman who came from very humble means and slowly managed to build up a railroad empire. There's a documentary somewhere on YouTube, which I highly suggest you check out. But anyways, once he built up his railroad empire, Rick Corman wanted to add a steam locomotive to RJ, but at the time there weren't any in working order. But China had been producing steam engines into the late 80s, so it was pretty cheap to import one into the United States. So they brought one over and modified it a little bit, and so did Iowa Interstate. I think they brought two over as well. So anyways, I bought this one. I hope to kind of remodel it as RJ Corman number 2008, and I think it will make a very unique addition to the collection. So let's get it out of the box here. Here's the box. I'll admit, I've never heard of K First before. I tried to do some research on them, but there doesn't seem to be anything online about it. I believe that they're made by a company called Changming, but I can't be 100% sure. Anyways, here's the box. Despite this being a Chinese locomotive, it ironically looks to have been made in Germany. We'll have to see about that. Here are some details on the locomotive. Now let's have a closer look at it. I'm guessing this is here for a good reason. Here's some basic information about the steam locomotive, and I'm impressed to see that it is both in Mandarin and in English. I really was not expecting that, and you can see right here that the QJ class can be found at museums in China, Germany, and Japan. A railroad company in the United States has preserved two QJ-class steam locomotives into working condition. Well, apparently they forgot RJ Corman. I know it's not still operating, but it exists in America. Here are some of the features. This locomotive is supposed to be DCC in sound, as well as a fluid burner, so we'll have to see if that works. Here are some of the different functions for all the sounds, and I guess some basic disassembly for it, if you should need to do such. And there it is. Look at that. Can't say there's too much holding this all together. Locomotive appears to include a set of wheels with blind flanges, which I might need for my layout. We'll have to see. But as for the locomotive itself, it really looks excellent. The detail is super sharp. We've got all metal construction here. Despite being a prototypical model, the flanges are actually quite large. I honestly don't mind that. I know it might not be the most realistic thing, but I rather have my locomotive stay on the track than just look slightly off. So what's crazy about the QJ steam locomotives is that they were still in production until 1988. And just to give you an idea of how wild that is, the TGV Atlantic would have been rolling off the production line at the same time as the last of these were made. Pretty insane stuff. The one which RJ Corman bought was made in 1986, so when they bought it in about 2006, it was only a 20-year-old steam locomotive. You can see on the builder's plate this specific locomotive was built in 1972. You can see on the top here, this steam locomotive actually has a set of horns. There is also a whistle, so it's sort of similar to the Southern Pacific Daylight in that regard. I guess that's just something that they added on modern steam locomotives. When RJ Corman bought it, they put an American-style whistle on it, however, as well as a bell. This has got to be a first for me. It seems like the locomotive actually has a sunroof. I've seen some steam engines which had hatches which could be open, but this is pretty new. Even the cab looks to have properly been fitted with gauges and levers. A couple exposed gears on the bottom, that's kind of funny. I'm personally not a big fan of having exposed gears like this. You know, if this goes over a piece of dust or whatnot, the oil will attract it into the gearbox and it can cause all sorts of havoc. So I'll have to be careful with that. Despite the QJ being a Chinese-built steam locomotive influenced from Soviet design, there's actually a lot of American influence over it, as its roots can be traced back to both Alco and Baldwin locomotives. And I find around the front of the boiler, as well as the wheels, you can certainly see that. The smoke deflectors and top of the smokestack certainly look foreign, but the rest of it certainly shares some similarities to what you see here in North America. In order to model this thing after RJ Corman 2008, I am going to have to make some changes. I'm going to have to remove the smoke deflectors, as well as add some skirts to it, a little bit of paintwork here and there, but other than that, this is certainly a terrific start. The couplers themselves look to be made out of plastic. I might end up changing those out for some KDs depending on how they work. It appears on the trucks that they pick up power through a set of contacts on one side and through the journal on another. Well, as far as detail goes, I'm very happy with this thing so far, but what I'm really curious about is how exactly it sounds, and more importantly, how it runs. So let's take it over to the layout and test it out a little bit. So I quickly just went ahead and got this thing all set up on the track. I also grabbed the pamphlet, that way we can literally test out all the bells and whistles. But first, let's load it up with a bit of fluid. Alright, so as far as functions go, let's try 0, which should be the headlights. Currently not seeing anything there. Let's go for number 1, and that apparently turns on the sound. 2 is the whistle. 3 is the horn. That definitely sounds a little bit different than what I'm used to. 4 is supposed to be the dynamo, and it also appears to turn on the lower headlight. 5 is supposed to get the locomotive to flavor country. You can kind of hear it buzzing. Let's see if it does that. And it seems to do a fine job at that. 6 is for the high beam headlight. So far I'm not seeing anything there. Number 7 is for the red light, and that also doesn't seem to do anything. Number 8 is the cab light, and I can see that that's just gone on. Number 9 is for the inspection lights, and I have seen a few things come on over here. Function number 10 is for shoveling coal. You can definitely hear the sound effect. Number 11 is for switching mode. 12 is supposed to be the injector. You can faintly hear that. Number 13 is supposed to be the air pump at high speed. 14 for the low speed. 15 for the stoker. 16 for the sanding valve. 17 for the handbrake. 18 for the water refill. 19 for the ash dump. 20 is supposed to be blow down. 21 for the independent brake. 22 for couplers. 23 for curved squeal. It's possible the engine has to be running for that. 24 for dumping. 25 for heavy load mode. Probably another feature which has to be used when the engine's actually running. And finally, 26 is just supposed to get rid of any brake squealing noise. So anyways, now that we've tested all this stuff out, why don't we give it some power and actually see how it runs for the first time here. Well, so far this thing seems to be running quite well. I also figured out the headlights. Basically, you just need to click 0 and then click 6, and then that activates them both. I don't know why they decided to make it a two-step process, but either way, I'm just happy to see it working. Another thing I discovered is the smoke system has a feature, which is that when you stop, you can see, it's going in a straight line as you'd expect. But when you accelerate, it has some sort of a pulse feature. So if you look right here, you can see there's like little puffs of smoke which are actually timed with the sound. That's something I've never seen on an HO scale locomotive, and I think it's quite impressive. So I think at this point all I want to do is actually test it out with some different cars. Now, as I said in the beginning, it has plastic couplers and they don't even unlatch. Luckily, it comes with some spring-loaded couplers. There's a couple in there, so I think we'll quickly bring this thing over to the bench. We'll install those and see how it pulls. I think with the die-cast chassis, it must have at least decent pulling capacity. I'm not sure if there's a specific way you're supposed to remove these, but I'll just kind of go at it. That's a little more like it. Well, folks, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. I certainly enjoyed unboxing and testing out this locomotive. So far, quite happy with its performance and detail. It seems like a decent product. But what I'm really looking forward to is actually getting the materials required to turn this thing into RJ Corman's 2008. I think it would just look absolutely fantastic all decked out. And I'd really like to get a couple RJ Corman diesels and some rolling stock to go with it, just so I can recreate the entire train as it was back in the day. Depending on how the project goes too, I might order up another QJ and try to recreate Iowa Interstate's locomotive, but we'll see. I think I'll leave it up to this project to determine that first. But until then, I just want to thank you all so much for watching.